Hi everyone, this is Cooking with Kurt. Today my husband Donald and I are going to show you how to make Siopao Asado. These are steamed buns stuffed with pork asado, which is a sweet barbecue pork filling. I loved eating Siopao Asado growing up, made by my Ate Bibing. Thanks Ate Bibing.
Siopao Asado is the Filipino version of Chinese Char Siu Bao, which I also ate growing up. Not made by Ate Bibing, but at Chinese restaurants that my mom took me up to. Thank you so much, Mom.
This recipe was requested by a lot of you, and we hope you like this video. To start, we're going to make the pork asado, i.e. Char Siu filling. Take about 3 pounds of boneless pork shoulder or pork butt and slice it into 2-inch thick slabs. Then in a small non-reactive bowl, add in 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of table salt, half a teaspoon of 5-spice powder, 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, half a teaspoon of sesame oil, 1 tablespoon of cooking rice wine, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce, 4 cloves of garlic that have been finely minced, and finally an optional 1/8 teaspoon of red food coloring powder. Mix these together to form the asado sauce. Transfer 2 tablespoons of this asado sauce into a separate small bowl, cover it with plastic, and store this in the fridge. We'll be using this separate asado sauce for basting the pork when roasting. Then take a non-reactive medium-sized bowl like glass or stainless steel, add in the slabs of pork and the remaining asado sauce, and rub the sauce into the pork very well with your hands. Cover this with plastic wrap. We're going to let the pork marinate in the asado sauce in the fridge overnight for a minimum of 8 hours. The next day, the pork will have absorbed all of the wonderful flavors from the asado sauce. Place your oven rack in the upper third position in your oven and preheat your oven to 475 degrees Fahrenheit. Then take a roasting pan, line the pan with aluminum foil, and pour in 1.5 cups of hot water, just the hot water from the tap, into the pan. Place a metal rack on top and arrange the marinated pieces of pork on the metal rack, spacing them out as much as possible. We're going to roast the pork in the preheated oven at 475 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes, then turn down the oven temperature to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and continue roasting for another 15 minutes. Take the pork out of the oven, flip the pork pieces over, add an additional 1 cup of hot water to the pan, turn the pan 180 degrees from its original position for even roasting, and continue to roast for another 15 minutes. While the pork is roasting in the oven, take the reserved 2 tablespoons of asado sauce and add in 2 tablespoons of honey and 1 tablespoon of water. Whisk this together to combine, forming a basting liquid. After a total of 40 minutes of roasting, take the pork out of the oven, baste one side of the pork pieces, flip them over, and baste the other side. And continue roasting the pork at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for another 10 minutes for a total roasting time of 50 minutes. Or until a meat thermometer reads 160 degrees Fahrenheit when inserted into the thickest part of each piece. If it's not yet done, continue roasting in 10-minute increments. Let the roasted pork rest for a minimum of 10 minutes before slicing. Dice enough of this pork asado to make about 1.5 cups of diced pork to use for the steamed Siopao filling. Use more as needed depending on how many buns you're making. Today we're going to make 12 Siopao buns, and this 1.5 cups of diced pork asado will be enough to fill those 12 buns. You can make additional batches of Siopao buns with the remaining pork asado, or you can just slice it and serve it with rice or whatever sides you like.
The roast pork asado can be frozen and defrosted as needed. Just tightly wrap it up in foil before storing it in the freezer. Next we're going to make the Siopao dough. Take the bowl of your stand mixer, add in 1 cup of lukewarm water, It should be about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and sprinkle in 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast. Whisk this till the yeast has dissolved into the water. Add in 5 tablespoons of granulated sugar and whisk this in. Then add in 1/4 cup of vegetable oil and mix it in. In a separate mixing bowl, using a sieve, sift together 2 cups of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of cornstarch. Add this mixture of dry ingredients into the yeast water mixture. With your hands, gently combine the wet and dry ingredients just until all the dry ingredients are moistened and incorporated. Fit your stand mixer with the dough hook attachment and turn on the mixer to the very lowest setting on your mixer and let it mix until the dough is smooth, which will take about 10 minutes. If you're kneading the dough by hand, this will take about 15 to 20 minutes. When it's done, the dough should look like a smooth ball and should not stick to the bottom or the sides of the bowl. Turn off the mixer, and leaving the bowl still attached with the dough hook, just cover the dough with a damp cloth or plastic wrap. We're going to let the dough rest at room temperature for 2 hours.
While the dough is proofing, we're going to work on the pork asado filling. Take a wok or a large skillet, add in 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, and heat over medium-high heat. When the oil is hot, add in 1/3 cup of finely minced red onions and saute this for about 1 minute. Turn the heat down to medium-low and add in 1 tablespoon of dark brown sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of oyster sauce, and 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. Stir these ingredients to combine and let it come to a simmer. Then in a small mixing bowl, add in 1/2 cup of chicken stock and 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Whisk them together till the flour is dissolved. Then add this mixture into the wok while whisking to break up any lumps of flour. Bring this to a boil, whisking occasionally. And once it's boiling, let it continue to cook for another minute or less, just until the mixture has thickened. Turn off the heat and stir in the 1.5 cups of diced roast pork asado till it's fully combined. Line a sheet pan with parchment paper, then using a tablespoon measuring spoon, scoop this Siopao filling, 1 heaping tablespoon at a time, onto this parchment paper lined sheet pan to divide them into 12 equal portions. I'm just judging by eye and adjusting the amounts as needed so that the 12 portions are approximately equal. Set this aside and let it cool to room temperature.
When the dough has rested for 2 hours, remove the cloth or plastic wrap and sprinkle 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder over the dough. Turn on the mixer with the hook attachment back to the very lowest speed and let it mix for 3 minutes or until the baking powder is mixed in and the dough looks smooth again. Recover the dough with cloth or plastic wrap and let it rest for another 20 minutes. In the meantime, prepare 12 3 by 3 inch squares which will be used for the individual buns when steaming.
When the dough has rested for 20 minutes, we're ready to assemble the Siopao buns. Turn the dough onto a smooth, clean surface and roll it into a long tube. I'm using a bench scraper to divide it into 12 approximately equal pieces, just estimating by eye and weight in my hands. When you have 12 approximately equal pieces of dough, form the dough into tight spheres by rolling each piece in your palms with cupped hands. This ensures that there are no air bubbles in the dough. Set these dough spheres aside to rest under a cloth to prevent them from drying out. Then taking 1 dough sphere at a time, use a rolling pin to flatten each sphere into a circular disc shape that's about 4 inches in diameter. Try to roll at the edges and avoid rolling the center. The thickness of the dough should taper towards the edges of the circle so that the disc should be thicker in the center, almost like there's a mound at the center, and getting thinner towards the edges. Add 1 portion of the pre-divided filling in the center of the circle. Fold the disc together by bringing the opposite sides of the circle together and then pinching the closed circle together tightly, then twisting the top to ensure the bun is sealed. Pick up the bun and invert it, placing it seam side down on one of the 3 by 3 inch squares of parchment paper. Then shape it with your hands as needed to create a more even circular shape. Cover the formed buns with plastic wrap while working on the remaining buns to prevent them from drying out. Repeat this with the other 11 pieces of dough, creating 4-inch discs with tapered edges, using the remaining portions of filling, closing the circle, sealing it, twisting the top, and inverting onto parchment paper. When you're ready to steam the siopao buns, fill the steamer pot about 1/4 of the way up with water and add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the water and bring to a boil on medium-high heat. The vinegar helps to create whiter looking buns when they are cooked. When the water is boiling and the steamer is preheated, turn down the heat to medium-low. Brush the buns you're about to steam with some water immediately before adding them to the steamer. Brushing with water helps the buns maintain a smooth surface during steaming. Then place them in the steamer and close the lid. And we're going to steam the buns on medium-low heat for 15 minutes for each batch. Do not open the lid during that time. When the buns are done, carefully remove them from the steamer and let them rest. Now, depending on the size of your steamer, you might have to steam the buns in multiple batches. Keep in mind to have a minimum of about 1 inch between the buns and about 1/2 inch from the wall of the steamer, as the buns will expand while steaming. This steamer only fits 2 buns per batch, so we're steaming our buns in 6 batches. You can store uncooked formed buns in the freezer. Just put them in an airtight container so they don't dry out. Cook frozen buns in the same way, just add about 5 minutes of extra steaming time for a total of 20 minutes.
Leftover cooked buns should be stored in an airtight container and will keep in the fridge for up to 5 days and in the freezer for up to 2 months. Reheat them by steaming on medium-low heat for 15 minutes.
And there it is, Siopao Asado. Steamed buns with sweet roast barbecue pork filling. Ang sarap!
Yum!
So good. This really takes me back to my childhood.
Me too. And I love that soft and slightly sweet bread and that delicious pork filling inside.
Thank you all so much for watching. Please let us know in the comment section below if you're planning to make this Siopao Asado. Send us pictures of your creations on Facebook and Instagram. The links are below. And if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Cooking with Kurt.
And don't forget to click on the bell so you get notified when we post new cooking videos.
Maraming salamat!
Zaijian!